You seem to take an awful lot of care in the type of pictures you have taken and the way you present yourselves in the media. How do you go about controlling it, or what do you aim for in terms of an image? Is it that much different from yourselves and the real selves?
No, it's exactly the same, really. The only difference from the image that we have on paper and the real thing is that when we have the pictures taken, we make sure we're looking our best, as it were, and we obviously don't 24 hours a day. But clothes-wise and the type of image, it's not really that different at all. We've always just worn in photo sessions the clothes that we're wearing at the time.
We're very insistent about the quality of pictures that go out, and generally things that we can have control over. We make sure we have as much as possible. We insist that we see photos, that we choose the photos that go out. It's really the only way you can ensure that you get quality every time, because if you leave it up to someone else, they won't have the same idea of as you'll have. So invariably, you feel that it's not up to scratch. So it's always best. It saves a lot of aggravation for everyone.
Thank you. It was quite simple, really. I mean, it's not pleasant to have a nasty picture of yourself in a million copies of whatever.
Is there anything you can't control?
Oh, there are lots of things we can't control. Like live photography, things like that. And there are various things that you can't control, but you just make sure that you have enough good photographs available so people want to use the good ones.
So I think you just answered this question, but just for the purpose of the interview, he wants to know what you use as criteria to judge which photographs make it out.
基準というかね、
Any sort of one basis that determines like the type of pictures, the type of photographs you release.
Mostly, we're not really that concerned about a concise image. We're just trying to look attractive in the photographs.
Yeah,
perfectly honest.
Ones that are really glamorous to the extent that we look really good in them. We don't concentrate on the picture, the situation that we're in. It's our faces, and if we look good, that's.
There are two types. There's one type which is like a glamorous photo, which obviously we like, and there's another type which basically just is a warm photo. If there's a picture where we both look very natural, and we look, if we're both nice natural smiles or whatever.
Yeah, and you can sort of divide up into smiling photos and sort of.
Yeah, but smiling photos come in posed and natural ones, and if they're good, and if they're attractive smiles, or if they're we don't really think about it that much, but a good photo because the smile is genuine.
The question relating to your first album, you did a cover of Love Machine, and he was just wondering, being apparently avid R&B fans, would it be conceivable for you guys to do an album like Bowie's Pinups in the future, where you do a album of nothing but covers? And if you did, what songs would you do?
No, I don't think we do a whole album.
I don't know, I've thought about that before. I thought it'd be quite nice. It'd be a long time. It would be a long time. Oh no, it's Wham. I think it'd be quite a good idea. But in about 4 or 5 albums' time,
Yeah, one day. I mean, it does. I mean, mood doesn't take us right now. But
no, it's just that there are so many songs that sound like they'd be great to cover.
Like what, for example?
There's hundreds.
There's two that we like a lot. There's an Aztec Camera song, and there's a Teardrop Explodes song, which you might actually do on the next album. But I mean, it's the kind of thing that's nice to do. I mean, it's just self-indulgence. The only thing about it is that you have to be convinced that your versions of each track are as good as the originals, which is not likely to happen. So I mean, it'll be quite a long time before we approached anything that was vaguely like that. But I don't know. I mean, I think we'll have too much material of our own to put out.
Have you done anything at stage or rehearsals? Any covers during rehearsals or on stage that you've never decided to put on the vinyl?
No, we do Good Times in a live show, but we wouldn't put it on an album.
Good Times?
We do Good Times by
Chic.
Oh, Chic.
Good Times by Chic, and we do it very close to the original. So we wouldn't want to do that, on an album.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from anything, that's the type of track that you wouldn't even try to make better.
He's pushing the point a bit here, but if you were to be forced into making a record like that, what songs would you choose, just out of curiosity?
What, a whole album?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, not offhand. We can give you a few. Like George said, there's a Teardrop track we'd like to cover, and then State Cab track. Some older, perhaps some older Motown stuff. Maybe a couple of Elton John tracks.
There's a lot of stuff, really.
Well, it is.
It would be better to take tracks that were not very well known that we like. Trouble is there aren't that many of those because we listen to mainly top 40 music.
It's really good to, in a way, that if you cover a track that is a great song that hasn't been widely heard, it's nice to be able to give it that sort of exposure.
Apart from anything, it doesn't get compared as much to the original. But I don't actually think it's a viable idea. It's a nice idea, but I don't suppose we'd ever do it.
Might do one. We'll probably do one.
An EP, that would be an idea. Do an EP.
An EP of covers.
4 or 5.
The quality of the recording of the first album was surprisingly good for a couple of guys who just made their first album. Where did you learn, or where did you master the art of studio techniques?
Well, it's not. It's down to us, and it's down to the producer and the engineer. But if you have a definite idea of, we've been listening to records since we were God knows how old, so you do get an ear for what sounds really good. And if the engineer's setting up sounds or whatever, you can hear a good sound. So basically, it's from experience with listening to records.
I think the reason people. I think what surprises people is the overall professionalism of the record and the fact that we arranged them. And I think the most professional thing compared to a lot of other debut arrangements is just that, the arrangement. And that basically just comes from listening to thousands and thousands of pop records over, 15 years. And you develop a sense of what is exactly right, rhythmically and melodically. Well, at least we have. And that is the major difference, I think.
Arrangement, though. When you start out from zero, what do?
How do you write a song?
Well, imagine the melody comes into your head, and then you say, how about this, and then you both work on it. How does this arrangement start? You say you want a guitar here, you want 2 guitars and a rhythm track and a keyboard track on this song.
Well, arrangement, when you're talking about arrangement, you're really talking about the things that you do which
embellish a track.
Yeah. And
you start with the basic background of music.
You're talking about the way that rhythms complement each other from different instruments and harmonies and things like that. And that, it'd be far too difficult to explain because it happens in so many different ways. But if you have that sense, when that there's more arrangement to be done, or when you put too much into a track, either rhythmically or melodically, and it just it's not something that you actually think about too much because it is something that you're used to.
Did it take a lot of time to find the sound you were looking for in the studio? Or did it basically come pretty easily through the age of producers?
No, it didn't come easily. The whole album didn't come easily because we were under a lot of pressure and because I wrote the remaining tracks on the album that had to be written while we were in the studio. And it was quite difficult, but sound-wise, we just wanted to try and get various sounds within the album, which I think we succeeded in doing. I really need a tissue. but obviously the sound doesn't vary hugely because we use the same, we co-produced with Steve Brown, and his sound and the engineer we used have various similarities. The next album I'll be producing myself. So hopefully, because I have no former experience of production on my own, I'll be able to vary the sounds a lot more from track to track.
So probably encountered with this one a lot, but you attained this much success the first album, and you must be somewhat pressured into following up that same success with the second album. Do you have any concrete ideas of what the second album is going to be like at this point?
Not yet. Well, we've got some basic guidelines of how we'd like it to sound, what sort of album we'd like it to be.
I think the only real concrete idea is that, having shown that we can fuse the two styles, being black music and white pop, soul and pop, on the singles and again on the album, having shown we can fuse them, that we'd like to pull them apart a little bit and be a little more adventurous with the black sounding stuff, and make harder funk tracks, but also come further away from the idea, which has been very credible in our country for the last couple of years, of fusing those styles, and get down to writing some pop songs, which, I mean, they're all pop songs obviously, but I think we want to push the two styles a little bit further into their own categories, so that we can actually achieve more feel with each record, because I think fusion between the two styles, although it is very commercial and obviously there's a lot to be said for it, it does limit the feel of a pop record and the feel of a black record. It kind of dilutes the two a bit, so we'd like to harden them both.
In making the second album?
Not yet.
No, there's no. I'm actually very, very confident about it, because but when we made the first album, that pressure was mainly due to the fact that we were doing everything ourselves. We had no management, and just basically the first 6 months of fame, as it were beginning to take their toll, and that pressure made the album very hard to make. We're not under that pressure now, and we feel a lot better. So I think the next album should be a lot more relaxed, and being more relaxed, it should be a lot better.
Are you confident of anything? What do you have confidence in for the second album?
Well, we have confidence in sales.
Really?
Yeah, I think we've got a very sturdy following at home now. We've been out and toured, and we've done a very successful tour, probably the most successful tour of this year, or the last couple of years from the new band. So we've got that following behind us, and also by the time the next album is out, I think there'll be another couple of hit singles. I have a solo single which will probably come out within the next few months, which will also widen our audience a lot, because whether people see it as solo or not, they're still going to see the connection with Wham.
Culture clubs seem to have been able to repeat their success rather well with the second album.
Well, they've done a lot.
Well, they didn't have any much
first
success
album.
with the first album.
The first album was really naff. Compared to, it was really not very good at all. Compared to Do You Really Want to Hurt Me in Time, it really wasn't any good. But the second album is great. It's a very good album.
そうか、向こうは違うんだね。Despite the quality of your music, you seem to be attracting a audience that is largely female and largely young. And so often, in cases like this, the music gets overlooked. Do you ever feel any sort of dissatisfactions over this type of following or this type of recognition?
No, because there's a large proportion of the audience that doesn't overlook the music. We don't. I mean, we've just toured, and we were surprised by the amount of boys in the audience.
It was definitely 50-50.
Yeah, and they're attracted just as much to the image as, in a way, as the girls are, but they appreciate the music that much more because they're one step removed from the image. So, but critically, it doesn't bother us at all. I mean, we
know basically that we're not going to be taken seriously. Originally we were taken very seriously, too seriously by the press in our country, and became like they tried to make us like social spokesmen. And the minute it occurred to them that girls had started screaming at us, because they didn't really notice us that much in the very beginning, but quite soon afterwards, when the marketing started, you know, the faces became more important. And the minute that people started screaming at us, they suddenly realised that perhaps we weren't social spokesmen at all. And because we threw off that tag ourselves anyway, they saw it as us saying we don't want to be social spokesmen because we'd much rather get screamed at, which wasn't what we were saying at all. All we were saying was we don't like the responsibility that you're putting on us, you know, and expecting from our lyrics by saying we were, you know, spokesmen for our generation, etc. And the press almost, at least the rock press, as you call them, almost invariably now slag us off, you know. And we won't be taken seriously for a good while yet, but who cares? I mean, we know that doesn't matter to us. I mean, we're not going to make the mistake that some groups have done this year and made follow-up albums to huge successes, but which have taken a much more serious and less commercial direction, and will undoubtedly sell minute proportions of what they sold last year, and their following will diminish as well. You know, we're not under that threat. We know exactly what we're doing. We know we play commercial music, but it's also very good commercial music, and we know what following we'll have for the next couple of years. But we also know the music is going to cover us when that following dies down, because these teeny bopper things always do after 4 or 5 years.
What are you slagged off for the most part?
Well, they slag us off for things which they basically try to make out that we are manipulated and that we have become, you know, a marketed product, and that we have no actual talent ourselves. They try to take all the credit of the stage show that we've just done and the tour that we've done. They were I mean, they couldn't actually think of who had actually done it, or they couldn't say and be sure who'd done it. So but they tried to make out that we weren't responsible for the success that we were creating and for the reactions that we created, as though we were just told what to do. We got up on stage and did the right things and made the girls scream and made the boys laugh, and you know. But we knew exactly what we're doing. We know what we're doing. We've got no one telling us what to do in a creative sense at all. But they can't accept that, because that would mean that we're being very clever at the same time as being very commercial.
Why did
Just a moment, please.
the press label you as a social spokesman in the first stages?
Simply because the first single we released in England was Wham Rap, and that was about unemployment, and they loved that. And then because we released a record which told kids not to get married early, you know, and that was Young Guns, and there were two things that we wrote about because we felt that they were good to write about, but they weren't because we wanted to become spokesmen, and the other material just isn't like that, because there are only a certain number of things that we have to say which relate to our generation that haven't been said before, and we don't want to go around saying things that have been said before.
I don't know. Giguntas may be mistaken, and if he is, he wants you to correct him, but he's under the impression that kids in Britain, the UK, tend to go through a stage where they do rather things that would be considered somewhat radical or somewhat out of the ordinary by, say, kids in Japan, and then they'll go on to become basically proper members of society. Do most of the kids in Britain go through this sort of stage?
No, not most. No, not most. Obviously, more than Japanese. All you're basically saying is that British kids experiment more when they're young, and they have a less concrete picture of what they want to grow up into. I think Japanese children, if they don't do that, it probably means that they know what they're going to become. Whilst they're teenagers. I don't know which is the best. I actually prefer the idea that people experiment when they're young. But all it means is that people are growing up. It doesn't mean that they conform or they're beaten down by society or anything. It just means that they grow up and decide that they don't necessarily need to be anything different to be happy.
Rebellion, or when you felt like rebelling and wouldn't listen to what people or society was saying and just branched off on your own?
Yeah. About 16.
What were you doing?
All sorts of things.
Like what?
Nothing that I care to mention, really.
It couldn't have been anything that bad.
Just the usual.
Usual?
I never went through it.
Really?
No, he didn't for very long. For a while. It's just a matter of the company you keep usually, and he kept different company for a while to me, and therefore went through a different phase. But
it's not just to do with that.
Oh, it was mainly to do that. 90%. That's what I think. But the
I've never agreed with that for a start. I've never agreed with that theory that it's just the company you keep.
What do you put it down to?
Because I put it down to there's a seed anyway.
Seed of rebellion. It only lasted 6 months, didn't it?
It's not lasted longer, does it?
But anyway, I mean, I never
get bored with anything.
I don't know why. I just had an idea that I was just going through. It was just that I just felt I was going through my teenage years, like the end of education and everything, just kind of doing time until I knew exactly how I wanted to become a pop star, because I knew I wanted to become a pop star. I was just very stupid to have realised that I could have branched out a bit earlier. I left school at 18 and I wish I'd left school at 16. I mean, I don't actually think I learned anything at school from the age of about 14, because I'd learned everything I needed to know to do what I wanted to do, and the rest of the time was just wasted. But I didn't realise that at the time, so it was too late. I mean, it hasn't done me any harm. I just think that it's 2 years of my life that I could have spent enjoying myself as opposed to being bored.
Well, you were quite subdued, whereas you were bored and a little more restless then.
Yeah,
What did you
do? About 16, just totally discontented with most things, and reacted.
Just basically went off on your own and...
I don't think you reacted particularly, did you? No, let's not try and make ourselves out to be a rebel.
Yeah, I reacted.
Well, I just think it's an interesting thing, because a lot of the kids here who listen to your music are probably about that age. At least that's one large segment, and they're probably just interested in knowing what you went through as well. Because it seems we all go through that stage about the age of 15 or 16, right when we start to feel we're becoming adults.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, well, I mean, kids will go through their own personal versions of that. You know, it's no use giving advice because there's no advice you can give. I don't think anyone's got any answers to that. If they had, the psychiatrists would be out of work. You know, so, can't really give any answers to that.
That makes sense. And that's what you see a lot of the younger British bands these days kind of producing a sound that seems to be based on rhythm and blues. Like one example I might cite is Paul Weller's Style Council. He seems to be presenting the rhythm and blues bass in a somewhat different manner than you. How do you evaluate his efforts, if you listen to that at all?
I think, for a start, I don't really understand when you say rhythm and blues, because rhythm and blues over in England means the sort of
James Brown?
no, not James Brown. He's more funk. That's funk and soul. Rhythm and blues is Dr. Feelgood. The blues end, blues and rock. You know, sort of fusion of blues and rock. That's how we understand rhythm.
You obviously, I mean, the American interpretation of it incorporates most dance music, really, where it doesn't really in England. It's always had quite a vague term in England.
Well, let's put it this way: then black music. It seems that a lot of the sounds are based on black music, and one being the Style Council, which is very soul-like.
I think Paul Weller left the Jam. Basically, since he's left the Jam, he's written some really good songs, but he's basically trying to imitate various styles, which is obviously what he wants to do. I mean, you couldn't, there's the like stack sound that he's gone for, and then he's gone for the like a very hard, like a New York funk sound with Money Go Round, and then there's the obvious soul synth bass type soul record with what was it, Long Hot Summer. So I mean, he's done basically he's imitated in a much stricter fashion than we have. I think we've just taken bits from everywhere and bung them into ours. I'm not saying that's any better or worse. I just think it's a little more obvious than ours.
Don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but you got like bands like Roman Holiday and Joe Boxers as well. How about these bands?
Don't really take much of a liking to either.
Oh really? Why is that?
I just don't like. Of the two, I suppose I prefer Roman Holiday because they seem less pretentious. Joe Boxers, although they've got some decent songs, there's something about their attitude and the way they're very obviously have a very strong attitude to their music. Although that's good. It just detracts from the record somehow.
I like nothing about their image. Their image is a totally false image. You won't see. There's absolutely no kids like Joe Boxers. They have a totally false attitude and perspective that they project with their music. It may not be their own personal attitudes or perspectives, but the one they actually project is it doesn't.
It's very macho, isn't it? Very working class macho.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not even working class. It's working class maybe. Well, the style for a start, their visual image is absolutely nothing, in no way related to anything today.
No, it's American, isn't it? It's American. It's from D. It's American working class.
Well, exactly. It's not related to anything today. I mean,
no,
I'm sure. I mean, even Kids on Record don't look like that. Anything like that
sure
today. But I think I like one of their songs. That was Just Got Lucky. I thought that was actually brilliant. It was it was a really good pop single. It had real energy.
So much different from the other songs, though.
Sorry?
It's so much different from the other songs.
It's something I've never quite been able to put my finger on. I really
it's like Boxer Beat. It's much better than Boxer Beat. Boxer Beat had an awfully twee melody. But Just Got Lucky is really good. But I didn't like that Johnny Friendly.
But it seems like they're not serious. It seems like they're very camp about it, about that whole image.
Oh, I know, they're pretty serious about it.
Really? It seems like some of the 1940s dead-end kids type of...
They're very serious about it.
Really?
Yeah.
How about Roman Holiday then?
Roman Holiday, I think they're on to a bit of a loser because they're about the third or fourth band in the last 2 or 3 years who've tried to bring swing back into the charts. At least in our country, no one's interested.
There's a big underground, it's not exactly underground, sort of cult of 50s rockabilly, that sort of New York, the Jets and the Sharks and Jets, that sort of image. And Roman Holiday has sort of taken that out of the, which is what is very much a club situation, and try to make it commercial. But it doesn't ever work out of the.
Well, the Rockabillys aren't. I mean, the Rockabilly dressers.
They've taken it out and watered it down.
Yeah.
To make it more commercial, more like a West Side Story. But it's never. I don't think you can ever take that sort of mentality.
There's something about swing which just doesn't appeal to people. That hasn't appealed to people for years, as a general thing.
You see, the image, that image in the clubs, they don't listen to swing, they listen to funk.
Yeah, the Rockabillys now listen to soul. So there's not really. I think they just did it because they wanted something to go with the music. Or personally, I think they like swing, and they'd like to do something different than the charts, but people just don't seem to want to know it. And they've got perfectly good commercial songs. Swing just seems to turn people off.
It's funny, when a band achieves success, often they sort of close themselves off from what's happening, the new stuff, and kind of drop into their own world. It seems like you two are both very familiar with everything that's happening now.
I still go to all the clubs where those people go, where all the Rockabillys go, listen to soul and things like that. Andrew doesn't so much anymore because he doesn't like it anymore.
There's nothing's changed in those clubs for a year. I mean, the comment that I can make now about clubs is exactly the same, nearly exactly the same as it was 8 months ago to a year. They haven't changed. There's nothing new in the clubs, and it's unexciting. That's why I don't go.
I go for exactly the same reasons I went before, to get drunk and listen to the occasional good record. Well, actually, some of the clubs you go to, you can listen to loads of great records, but only some of them. But it is definitely very boring to sing.
You've achieved great success in both the UK and Japan. Seems like the only major market left is America. Are you confident selling records there?
Yeah, I mean, we've got Europe as well, but America is the only one we haven't got. And we're confident of that because the only reason we haven't got America is lack of record company action. It's not that people don't like it, because everywhere where we get played, we sell records. In the 2 areas we've been played most, New York and Los Angeles, we've done really well. I mean, LA we got to number 4, I think.
Oh, it's really only been California, not New York. We haven't sold records in New York. San Francisco, all of California, we've been pretty successful. We had number 1 in San Francisco on either radio station or a local chart on the gay charts.
I thought it was a number 1 as in a proper. I thought it was the area sales.
No, I don't know.
I wouldn't be at all surprised.
No, but I think it was the gay.
Basically, because
the gay charts.
Well, that's what I mean. San Francisco is basically gay, isn't it? 70%. We had leather jackets on the cover of Bad Boys.
They found something to relate to.
It's about 70, Andrew, I promise you. Honestly, you look it up. Anyway, that was why we were very successful there. I think it was just the jackets on the cover.
What about critical response in America? How's it been?
All I've read is one really bad review in Rolling Stone. One of the worst reviews we had on the album was in Rolling Stone, because all the reviews we got over we haven't really read anything but the English ones, And the English ones, even though they were very grudging, because they'd already realised that, we were a scream band, they just still had to admit that we made a really good pop album. And it's just become what is it? It's the #1 album of the year, isn't it? On chart positions.
Is it really?
On sales, yeah.
Yeah. Not on sales, on chart positions, on points. You get a certain amount of points for #1, blah blah. We're #1. Which is good.
Wow, that is.
And it got the most popular magazine in England, which is Smash Hits.
Is that the most popular magazine? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, Smash Hits is 500,000 circulation nearly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it.
Magazine anyway.
All we ever get here,
magazine.
all we ever get here is Sounds and Melody Maker and.
Oh no, those are very
that
low
was dropped
circulation.
out of that
Yeah.
market.
Is that right? Enemy and all those.
Absolutely.
That's
really?
why they. That's why, with the exception of Melody Maker, who hate the scream bands but still use them to sell.
Smash It sells a lot all over Europe. It's really, really big.
Is it more of a positive magazine? All these other ones are so negative.
Smash Hits is very
crucified.
well. Smash
well,
Hits is turning around a little bit because there's a new magazine in England which is selling in proportion nearly as much because it's twice as regular. It's every week, and Smash Hits is every 2 weeks.
What's this other one you're talking
The other one's called #1, and we're like #1's best band.
#1's #1.
We're in there every week, just about a poster or And
But I mean, that's due. That's solely due. That's not because #1 have decided to champion us. Simply because they have so much feedback from their fans. They have a readers chart, they have readers this, readers that, and like Club Tropicana was stayed in the readers chart for the longest out of Beat Culture Club. So they're just really reflecting what their readers want to see, which is our pictures.
And Smash Hits, even though Smash Hits haven't really paid an awful lot of attention to us this year, maybe because #1 have taken so much. But Smash Hits readers voted fantastic the album of the year above the Culture Club one, even though above the Culture Club album and the Duran Duran album, even though those two bands came ahead of us in the best group category.
Smash Hits, the tone of Smash Hits is becoming far more rock, rather like the NME. They're drifting sort of left field because #1 seems to be is barging on their territory. They're moving over, and they don't really reflect their the majority of their readership because we got the #1 album, but their attitude towards us is very, very lukewarm. We had a really bad review. The only bad review in the sort of glossy tabloid music magazine, which is Record #1, of our tour, the concert, and like.
We had absolutely shiny reviews from the others.
The majority of the people who come and see us also read Smash Hits, and you ask any of the kids what they thought about the show, and it's totally the opposite to what they said with Smash Hits. So they aren't reflecting.
It's definitely. There's definitely. We're a little bit of a problem for the English music press because we do. We have made a very, very good record, a very popular record, and it has a little more. There's a little more polish to it and a little more intelligence than a lot of the bands that are getting screamed at, and they don't know quite how to take it. I think they don't know whether to actually credit us with anything or whether to just say let's forget about them until the screaming dies down. But we know that they'll have to come round in the end because, like every other establishment, they come round when success is huge for long enough. They have to come round because everyone is telling them they don't care what they say. So who cares?
もっとさ、なので、これで終わりにしますけども、一つですね、お願いがあるんです。それは放送で使えます。
We have an
NHK のサウンドステーション
radio station here, a lot like the BBC. It's called NHK, it's government run, and on it is a rock program which I'm a part of, and I do it with the editor of this magazine. And we have a a yearly vote from listeners. And like we have 3 categories, one of which is what we call the brightest hope, in other words, the best new band. And so far in the voting, which will end in another couple of weeks, Wham has pretty much secured a position, at least first, second, and third in that category. And so it looks like you guys might walk away with the first place there. So what we want is a message here for the listeners,
In case we do.
which looks pretty likely. Believe it or not, this is Walkman Professional can be used for its radio quality. Gets good sound, so we're just going to get taping done right here.
Okay. Just from here.
Yeah. I mean, you can have a couple seconds to
So
think
this
about
is
it.
on the presumption that we've come first here. We
それは1になったっていう前提でいいで
Yes,
す。
the support.
1に
そう
選ばれた
もう
って
1位
いう
をほとんど
前提。
確実だから、1位という前提でいいもう。
It's already almost set that you're going to be number 1.
Let's just thank them.
Let's just thank for support, yeah.
That sounds good.
だからワム自身の一人ずつ
Saying your own names.
Yeah, okay, fine. Hello, this is George.
And this is Andrew.
We'd just like to say thank you very much for everyone for your support, and we're a bright. What was it? Brightest hope.
Brightest hope, yeah.
Do it again.
Right, do it again.
Hello, this is Andrew.
Hello, this is George from Wham.
We'd like to thank everyone for your support in 1983. We know we came pretty high on your brightest hopes. We think that 1984 is going to be a really good year for us, and we hope for your continued support.
So you want to do that one again? 1984.
It's 1984.
That sounds fine. That sounds fine.
All right, leave it there.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a take.
1994.
All right, that's a lot.
あ、じゃあ写真